we may be having the Agricultural Advisory Committee a public event in the fall, because this was by an invitation-only event. And leading from that, we would, having this report to the regional district, we may look at actions either from this report or from ongoing work of the Agricultural Advisory Committee, measures that we can take in improving our local policies and our OCPs and zoning and other initiatives. And we will be forwarding such information on to other groups, including the provincial government. So with that in mind, I'm just going to now turn this over to group number 1, the carrots, and Julie, are you going to be presenting for them? This is an organic, on-the-fly event, so I guess here you go.
Guess I'm the carrot. Okay, so Leanne and I were the 2 tables that had the carrot question, and the carrot question, you may remember, was how do we increase the amount of food grown here on the Sunshine Coast? Leanne and I did a really quick summarizing of what came up at both of our tables, and here in the 10-minute summary are the 5 categories that we see, and what I'll do is, as I read these out, give you some of the examples that came underneath each of them. So engagement seemed to be a common theme. Actually working together, planning together, being together as we do this work was a very strong element at both Leanne's carrot table and mine. So examples of your suggestions that came in there were education-related programs, incentive-related programs, services like labor development programs, and the idea of, I understand what was previously called an extension officer, so someone locally who knew the land and could provide sort of an advisory level support for people who are growing food. Community gardens and community kitchens, and increasing youth involvement specifically through school programs was a really central theme. Land availability, I'm sure, is something that came up across all the questions, but certainly was a theme from what Leanne and I heard. So opportunities to grow food on crown land or public lands, parks, school grounds, etc., was really consistent across both tables. The idea of having a Sunshine Coast-wide vision for what growing food here looks like came up really strongly, particularly in the second round of conversation for myself. And someone really wisely asked the question, is really growing more food here the point, or is there something behind that that we also need to be asking, such as, how do we want to be growing more food? So I think the answer to that is yes, and there's a whole pile of values that we have behind community-oriented and perhaps organic and sustainable that maybe are behind that question too. So having a Sunshine Coast-wide vision for how we grow food seems to be very important. Achievable goals also in a short and long-term kind of strategy also came up under vision. Local control was also a very strong theme. So conversation around production of seafood, as well as farm gate, land availability and use came up again there, as well as watershed protection and local control over that. Lots of conversation around either lobbying, harassment, I heard it called, engagement with higher levels of government to promote a further understanding and awareness, I guess, of the needs here on the Sunshine Coast and perhaps in other places. So there's opportunity for us on the coast to have those higher levels of government understand our needs, but also for us to do that work alongside others who are looking for those changes to happen too. Leanne, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, part of that was linked to the farm gate regs and the difficulty with regulations that come from higher levels of government and the difficulty for us to comply with it and the lack of sensitivity to the local situations and peculiarities, like our chickens wouldn't be worth eating if we had to drag them all the way into town to get slaughtered. So that kind of thing. Let's see. And otherwise, I think, Julie, you got it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.